Welcome to the only daily podcast focusing on compliance news of the day. Each morning, start your day with a cup of coffee and Tom Fox, the voice of compliance, to hear about 4 of the top compliance, corruption, or leadership stories you will need to start your day. The Daily Compliance News is a production of the Compliance Podcast Network.
First, a word from our sponsor. The Daily Compliance News for June 24, 2022, the Never the Same edition. We begin with that story from Corporate Compliance Insights in an article by myself. Yes, Tom Fox, a first-time contributor to the Daily Compliance News. They shared a white paper I wrote around the blog post series I did, Never the Same, which details why business will never be the same after the Russian invasion of Ukraine in 5 key areas: supply chain, trade and economic sanctions, anti-corruption, compliance, cybersecurity, and ESG. So check it out on CCI. Next up, from the Wall Street Journal, Risk and Compliance Journal, Dylan Tokar reporting, the Department of Justice has revamped its fraud check section, bulking up staff as it takes on the expanded role in corporate settlements. Now known as Corporate Enforcement, Compliance, and Policy Unit, the division previously focused on internal strategy and policy, providing specialized training to prosecutors. Now they're going to take over and negotiate complex settlements with companies. And this is a really interesting development by the Department of Justice, once again to foster professionalism in settlement negotiations. And it will be staffed with folks from the corporate world who know compliance as well as other corporate matters. Next up from Reuters, Nikola founder Trevor Milton faces new fraud charges. They added a wire fraud charge to his criminal case. He's charged with defrauding investors by lying about the electric and hydrogen-powered truck maker. New charges concern his alleged efforts to defraud the seller of a ranch in Utah by making false and misleading statements about Nikola's products and business prospects. He has previously pled guilty, and he's scheduled for trial in July. And finally, also from Reuters, both Mexico and Brazil have fallen behind on anti-corruption efforts, according to the 2022 Capacity to Combat Corruption Index, published jointly by the Americas Society Council of the Americas and Control Risk, pointing to new setbacks for key institutions in the anti-corruption environment as a whole in 2 of Latin America's largest countries. The index, which evaluates 15 Latin American countries on how effectively they uncover, punish, and deter corruption, presented a mixed picture with rising inflation, COVID-19 distracting efforts. Of course, with the president of Brazil actively against fighting corruption, and I'll leave you to figure out why. It's really no surprise in Brazil that they backslid, and with AMLO, one really never knows when he's going to decide that corruption is something to fight or corruption is something to embrace. The Daily Compliance News is a production of the Compliance Podcast Network and a proud member of C-Suite Radio. Thanks so much for listening. I hope you'll join me again tomorrow.
This podcast is a part of the C-Suite Radio Network. For more top business podcasts, visit c-suiteradio.com.